So in today's video, we're not just going to look at how to distinguish between your higher self and that lower self, understanding the language between the two, but also how to actually connect with your higher self, to understand, because when you connect with your higher self, you get this cosmic wisdom come through, but also clarity, direction, answers to where you are headed in life, about your purpose. And right now, depending on which timeline you are on, what you need to know right here, right now, but also healing at a much deeper level. Now, we are always connected to our higher self, whether we are aware of it or not. It's that infinite part of you. But what you need to do is become aware of the part of you that is obscuring your higher self. So let's say, for example, you're about to settle in for the evening and you get a thought and a feeling that, tonight just before bed, I'm going to connect with my higher self. You feel inspired, you feel motivated. But the moment you get comfortable in bed, you look over, you see your phone, the TV remote or the book, whatever it may be. And suddenly you feel less inspired. You tell yourself, I'll do this later. I'm just going to do 10 minutes of that. And before you know it, that 10 minutes has turned into another 10 minutes. You feel tired and exhausted, depleted, and suddenly your energy is all spent. After that, you go to bed. And the next morning you wake up, you feel lethargic, unmotivated to start the day, thinking and feeling the same as yesterday's problems. Rushing around, half stressed, thinking, why did I make that choice? I was so keen and motivated to connect, to meditate, and now I just feel tired. And you go about your day thinking and feeling the same as yesterday. Now, this was a prime example of your higher self, that dominant way of thinking that was inspiring, only wanting beneficial and good things for you, versus that voice of the lower self in that mind, there ready at the front of the mind to jump in and take over. And this was just one example of how easy it is to give into that one particular voice, and in particularly that lower self, that will then determine how you carry out the rest of your day, determining how you're going to think, feel and do for the rest of your day, and so on. And for many of us who live on autopilot, it's very much easy to give into that known familiar past because it feels safe, or give into those known patterns, habits and ways of thinking, feeling and doing things. And for a lot of us, it's how we then create and manifest our life. But by connecting with your higher self, that's there ready, available, whether we're aware of it or not. And for you to tap into that love, that cosmic wisdom, helping you to guide and give you that clarity in that direction in life. And also helping you to manifest your dreams and desires. Now, I just want to reassure you that we all have a tendency to do this, to give it into that lower voice, to that lower self. After all, we are spiritual beings living and having a human experience. But I just want you to know that we all have these two sides of ourselves. One, the higher self voice, like a parent, only wanting best things for us, and might use words like, I imagine, I am being called to, I am curious, I believe I can, tapping into energies of excitement and joy, versus the voice, that internal voice, that lower self, that ego self, that makes up excuses or taps into the old habits, patterns, beliefs, bringing up fear, doubts, feelings of unworthiness, and may use words like, I can't be bothered, I'll do it later. What if I just don't do it at all? I'm not good enough. I don't feel worthy enough to deserve this. And one of the key ways to recognize between your lower self and your higher self is to tune into how it makes you feel. Does it open you up, feel exciting and expansive? Or does it make you feel restrictive, contracting? Notice how each one feels. And then use that reaction to help you make decisions and choices moving forward. I really hope that, just understanding the language between the two allows you to understand which part of you is communicating with you at any one point, and this can filter into other areas of your life. And if you find yourself in a difficult situation or awkward situation, whatever it may be, I want you to create that gap, that pause, that space, just taking a breath so that you can become aware of what it is that you are thinking, feeling and doing, becoming aware of okay, if I carry on reacting this way, is it going to serve my higher purpose, my dharma? Or is it going to keep me stuck in that familiar known past? Or if I respond this way, how is it going to be beneficial? Just creating that space and that gap alone, enables you to then tap into different vibrations, different emotions, because it is through those elevated emotions that you then create greater change in your life. And the most important thing is to trust what your higher self is telling you. It only wants the best for you and it will not make you feel bad. That's the lower self voice in your mind. You know, your higher self is an extension of yourself. It's part of source energy. It's the ultimate power. To give you an example of, trusting your higher self, when I'm connected with my clients and I'm channeling their higher self, bringing forth messages, signs and symbols, and even profound healing at a deep cellular level and across all dimensions or timelines, sometimes the higher self will pick up on any hesitance if the client has any hesitance. And the higher self will give me a message so that when I relay the message back, the client will be like, yes, that happened to me a few days ago, because that gives the client reassurance and confidence that whatever follows next, whatever came through my vessel that was channeled through is meant for them, for where they are on their timeline right now. For example, with one of my clients, a message came through and I was shown the symbol of a raven hitting a window. And when I relayed that back to the client was like, yes, for 2 weeks now, a raven has been coming and banging into my window. And that is something only she could have known. But just saying those words gave that client confidence and that reassurance that yes, whatever is followed next, whatever healing I need, it was meant to be. Whatever messages, symbols or signs, or whatever phrases, whatever quotes, or whatever anything that comes up, even if it's memories of trauma, past childhood stuff that comes up, was something that I needed to hear, was something that I needed to know now where I am in this lifetime. So this was just an example of how important it is to trust whatever comes through. There are times when I find myself in sticky situations and I never know what to do, and I'm begging and I'm looking for guidance everywhere. But the moment I pause and connect within, I will get this feeling, I will get this thought. And you just know within yourself that this is exactly what you need to do. Even if, your human self is not aware of what you might be doing next, but your higher self will sometimes step in, take over and carry out that action. And then later on you will be like, oh, wow, I can't believe I did that. And it worked out. That's because your higher self stepped in and you created that space. You allowed for your higher self to do that. But know that every person's journey is unique and we all have obstacles to overcome. So if you are struggling with, really building and strengthening that trust part and connecting with your higher self, then I will link that video in the description box below where I share with you 3 ways on how to overcome, and if you're finding it difficult, to connect with your higher self. There are many ways to connect with your higher self, but one of the most profound and direct ways is through meditation, because it provides you with a doorway into quietness and silence and a space to actually subdue that lower voice and to not fuel it. You see, our attention is often and always tangled in thought, in emotions, in judgment, and often stress. And when we start focusing on that, we start fueling the overthinking process, and then we have more thoughts to deal with, making it difficult to be still, to be in silence, or even hear that higher voice that much more difficult. With meditation, however, I'm calling for you to do the opposite, to let go of your thoughts again and again, and to then gently bring your attention and your awareness back to something neutral, back to something that doesn't pull you deeper into your mind. And this could be something simple as taking a breath, a gentle inhale and exhale, or focusing your gaze or your attention on the flicker of a candle. Still something simple and something present, or simply, after doing that breath awareness, bringing your attention and your awareness to your heart, creating that heart-centered awareness, and then drifting off into a simple meditative state. Keep in mind that here you are not stopping your thoughts, you're simply choosing not to follow them by resting your awareness on something that just is. When I do this, I tend to focus on or visualize energy just flowing up through my feet, all the way through my body and out through the crown chakra, and then again, all the way around, but in the opposite direction, creating that toroidal field, and then gently easing and dropping into my heart. And that is how I then ease my clients into a meditative state just before I connect with their higher self or healing. Because it's in that space between your thoughts and you where you find that stillness and that quietness, outside of all that chaos and that noise. And it's in that space when you then can say, okay, I invite in my higher self. And in that moment, you can set an intention, or you can ask questions, or you can just be and bask in the energy of your higher self. Especially if this is your first time starting off, trying to connect and invite in your higher self for healing, or just clarity or direction on where you are in life. Don't rush into it. Allow yourself to gently, go through that journey and that process of it. And the more you do this, you will notice that over time, you're no longer fueling those lower vibrations, that lower self, that internal negative voice. They're naturally reducing and slowing down. It's like training a muscle and teaching your mind and body to be still. Before I give you the example of what this connection feels like, let me just tell you that meditation is a powerful tool in reinforcing your spiritual connection. And while there may be various and different ways of doing meditation, but at its core, it means being still, whichever way suits you best, and then taking that journey within. And while it can be new to some people, especially being still, sitting still, and your nervous system is like, hold on, we're not used to this, because it is training your mind and body to do that, then just start simply with a few minutes. Take a few minutes in your day to just be still. And then gradually you can build that up over time. And let me tell you that when you connect with your higher self, you will want to do it again and again, because it just is, just out of this world. It really is. But if you do have any questions, let me know in the comments down below. And why not share how you have connected with your higher self and how it's helped you on your journey. What techniques and tools have helped you? Because it can also help other people who are also on this journey. Now, to give you an example of what this connection can feel like, the very first time I connected with my higher self through meditation was in 2021. And it was after my granddad had passed away. And at that time, I was also going through a very difficult, very dark period in my life. I didn't know whether I was coming or going. And I was very much living in stress and survival and fear mode, constantly, 24/7. And I wasn't doing anything in particular, but I was settling my younger daughter for the night. And I was sitting at the edge of her bed, just watching her drift off to sleep. And in that moment, I was like, I'm so stressed out. I'm just going to take this moment for myself. So I took a deep breath and I decided to close my eyes and go within. And as I did, I felt this immense energy all the way around my body. And in that moment, it was almost like I could see through the veil, see to the other side. And on the other side, it was just like being in the void, in space, in the ether. And then I saw, in the form of a human, my higher self. It's almost like we were there face to face, looking at each other, connected. And it was transparent, almost like just particles of energy. And in that moment, as I connected and, opened myself up to feel and connect into that energy, I felt this immense and pure love just fill my whole being. And what's interesting is because at that time I was going through a difficult time, but even growing up as a child, feeling and, living in survival mode, people pleasing, and never having that sense of belonging, that nurture or that love, having gone through survival and abandonment issues. In that moment, I felt this pure love take over my body. And it was in that moment that I decided never to look back, never to feel like you were never loved ever again. That this was a pure energy, that unconditional love that I've been waiting for all this time. And it was here in the form of my higher self, giving me that strength and that energy and that courage in the form of this love to then move forward and tackle whatever it is that was happening in my waking reality. So let me tell you that if it's going to happen, it can happen anywhere and any which way. There are no set ways, patterns or rules. You and your higher self have been on a very long journey together, not just this lifetime, but many lifetimes across different timelines and different dimensions. And now the time has come for you to connect with your higher self and to see where your higher self may take you, where it may lead you, what may come about by your connection with your higher self and what will manifest through that connection alone. And it is totally normal and okay if in that moment you doubt as to whether this is your higher self or not. It's okay, and I recommend that you actually do check in, checking in how that energy makes you feel. But it can also come in the form and the shape of a human, a spirit, an animal, or just this energy that feels through your body. And I've experienced all of them to some degree. And, even with my clients, when I tap and connect with their energy of the higher self, sometimes I'm able to see and visualize, the whole spiritual team, even Christ's divine energy or even the Galactic Federation. But you got to see how it makes you feel. And, if it doesn't sit right, that's okay. Take that moment to reset. Drop into your heart center and just try again. Or if you are finding it difficult to visualize anything, just visualize your higher self in the form of energy. This energy that just sits and feels through your whole body. And then as you build that connection up, you will just know. Sometimes people don't see anything, but they just hear that voice. And that is normal as well. Sometimes they see symbols and messages, light form energy, writing. And that's okay, because everybody's journey is unique to themselves. And when you make that connection, feel free to ask questions or set an intention or visualize something that you would like to manifest into your future. Or perhaps there's a memory or a problem that's coming up and you want clarity. You want direction or answers on that. Feel free to ask anything that it is that you want. Even if you don't get the answer right away, it will be shown and given to you in other forms, even after the meditation. And that's also totally normal. But even if it's something that's been playing on your mind, or, it's been heavy on your heart, allow yourself to perhaps feel through that connection with your higher self. So it might not be directly asking questions, but it's feeling through energy. Or perhaps it's simply just opening up your door to your heart, having that exchange of energy as you begin connecting with your higher self. Either way, relax your body, drop into your heart and open up your channel to connect and receive. Let me know how you get on, and don't forget to like and subscribe so that it can reach other viewers who need to hear this message, and I will see you soon. Take care, much love, Namaste.